is Kenneth Fair. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Selma City Schools. And without going too far off into detail, because I'm sure she's going to elaborate on some of these things as she gets up to speak to you, I will just kind of pinpoint a few things that she brought to the table as she first introduced herself to us. Number one, being teamwork. She came in the door letting us know that it was all about teamwork. Beyond teamwork, tying it back to our purpose, she said, it's always about students first. So we were introduced to teamwork, we were introduced to students first, and then she told us about excellence. Now, excellence already existed, but one of the things that I liked that she brought to the table was in the concept of teamwork, she said that we would start to create this excellence that we talk about. Not just an I or a you, but a we would create this excellence. And the way that we would do it, and we all just kind of smiled when she said this, we would do it with joy. These are her core values, and she will tell you more about them as she comes up to speak with you. This morning, again, I've had an introduction to introduce briefly our superintendent, Dr. Avis Williams.
Thank you. I do have a handout for everybody that I want to make sure we get out. Yes, myself. While they're getting those out, I just want to thank everybody for being here. And what an awesome way to start a meeting, but with music from our students. I mean, they were incredible. Even though they're not here for that round of applause, please come out and support them on December 10th for their concert. What a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon listening to and supporting our students, because as Mr. Fair mentioned, it is about students first. The document that you're receiving is my entry plan, and I'm not going to talk about it in great detail, but I do want you to take a look at it, and it might be some good bedside reading. That's a joke. But I do want you to, at some point, to maybe look at some of the pieces of it and see where you fit in with it, and what advice you may have for me in terms of the work as I move forward. This plan was developed in conjunction with me starting the position as superintendent here, but it's a fluid document, it's a living, breathing document, meaning that there are parts of it that absolutely can and will change based on the needs. Mr. Fair mentioned my core values, and I'm not doing a presentation, Mr. Coleman, if you're trying to flip through slides. I'm not doing a presentation. Mr. Fair mentioned my core values, and that's one of the first things that I did share with our team. And it does start with teamwork. And when I think about teamwork, it's everybody. And our parents are a huge, huge part of that teamwork. Because you're one of our primary stakeholders. We of course know we want students first, but we can't do our jobs without you. And your students are much better when they have you supporting them. And we appreciate that. So teamwork is a large collective. It's not just about us as educators. It's not just about the central office team or teachers. It's about the collective of everybody. But the excellence piece is one that really rings true, because if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And we're going to do it in a way that really, really exudes excellence, because that's what our students deserve. We live in a tough society with a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces that differ from when we were growing up. And we cannot shortchange our kids. We can't give them anything less than the best. And so I hold myself to a very high standard with that in mind. And as I work with our teams, with our teachers, our leaders, and with you all as parents, I'm going to hold all of us to that same standard, because we've got to give our kids the best that we have. And if we can't give them excellence, then we're not doing them the service that they deserve. And that's just what I believe at my core. And then he mentioned joy. As an educator, I do have joy to be able to work with children, to be able to know that the work that we do every day is truly having an impact on the lives of children. There's joy there for me. And I know as parents and supporters of our school, there's joy there knowing that you're working directly to, again, impact the future of our community and of our nation. You know, when you think about the young people that were just up here singing, and just imagine, that's our future. You know, they can be anything they want to be. They're one supportive adult away from being the greatest success story ever. And, you know, one thing that I say sometimes when I talk to groups of teachers is, don't be that teacher. Don't be that teacher, in this case, don't be that parent who, when I grow up and I'm successful, you're the person I want to say, see, I told you I could do it. You didn't believe in me. Don't be that parent. Don't be that teacher. Don't be that person within our ranks. You know, be that person who empowers our kids and who, in a joyful way, shows them that they can be anything that they want to be. Because that's what our kids deserve. Our kids absolutely deserve that. And I don't ever want to be that leader where a kid wants to find me just to show that in spite of you, I made it anyway. I don't ever want to be that person. And you know, so when we work with joy and keep excellence, teamwork, and students first in mind, then that's the furthest thing from the work that we're doing. In your packet that you have, you'll see that there are 4 key areas that we're working with as we do the work that's ahead. The first one is teaching and learning. And teaching and learning, that's what we do. You know, that's why teachers go to work every day, and that's why we get professional development on a regular basis. And then the learning piece, that's our expectation in every classroom every day. And within that area, you know, we're looking at how do we get better? How do we improve? We've got a lot of good things happening in Selma City Schools. But how do we get better? How do we take it to another level? How do we compete, not just within our state, not just within our nation, but globally to ensure that our students are ready to tackle the world? The second area is culture, climate, and community. And community was added on there because I do believe that the work that needs to be done within our school system cannot be successful without the community working together. You know, up to and including our teacher retention. You know, we've got to attract people who want to come to Selma. You know, we've got to make sure we have a community that embraces people, that has quality activities for their children to do, and housing that's acceptable for people anywhere to live in. And so there's a lot of work to be done with culture, climate, and community within our schools, but also within the community as a whole. The organizational leadership and management, that's just how we do school. It deals with everything from the finances to the hiring practices, and making sure that our leadership and practices are such that it attracts and retains the best and brightest talented teachers and leaders within our schools, and that they feel supported and that they're being rewarded in ways that make them want to come back every day and every year and stay with us and give us the best with Selma City Schools. And then the final area is facilities and technology. We operate more buildings than what our student population says we need. And some of you may know that recently we had a board meeting where, as a first read, there was a recommendation to close 2 schools. And closing schools is never easy, and it's always controversial, and I get that. But when we look at what's best for our students need to be in buildings where we can afford to staff them properly and make sure that they're repaired properly. And as long as our school system and our city continues to lose citizens and lose students, it becomes more and more difficult to operate the number of buildings that we operate. And so I invite you all to come out to our board work session next Tuesday night. And if you have comments that you want to make to the Board of Education about that, then that would be an awesome time to do that, because we do want to hear from you. At that meeting, I will share more information about each of those 4 areas, but with emphasis on the facilities piece. Because as I stated, it's never easy to start talking about closing a school building. And I definitely want to give it its due attention and in terms of answering questions or receiving public comments about that issue. The technology piece of that is just making sure that, again, our facilities support, from an infrastructure standpoint, the greatest technology, but also that our students have access to technologies that, again, prepare them to be ready to tackle the world. Those 4 areas make up 4 committees that are a part of my transition team. And the transition team consists of teachers, principals, students, parents, community leaders, pastors from our local churches, and other folks from within the community. And after the holidays, you'll start to hear more about the work of the transition team, because we will be working with those 4 areas to develop a new strategic plan for Selma City Schools. And it's going to be done collaboratively. It's going to be done with teamwork, so that we're hearing voices from not only within our schools, but within the community as well. And I'm very excited about that work. I'm very excited about the outcome of that work. And the outcome is expected to be that we're improving opportunities for our students, increasing opportunities for our students, and ensuring that their academic outcomes and their outcomes in terms of being citizens within our city and our nation are improved. So you'll hear more information about that moving forward. And as I mentioned, I don't have a presentation. I really wanted to share with you that information, but then hear from you to see if you all had any questions for me. So I flipped the script there. You see how I did that? But yes, ma'am. She has switched 2 schools. So the recommendation was to close Cedar Park and then to close the cost center for School of Discovery. And I'm going to explain that part because that gets a little bit wonky. It's a little bit, not really complicated, but a little different. By closing the cost center for School of Discovery, what will take place next year, if this recommendation is approved, is that our current 5th graders, who will be in 6th grade next year, will stay in 6th grade at the elementary school. Okay? Just for that 1 year, though. Don't get too happy. Just for that 1 year. Just for 1 year. Meanwhile, at the School of Discovery, those students will be 7th graders, and they will fall under the cost center of R.B. Hudson, because we're going to close the cost center for School of Discovery. And so during that school year, 8th grade only will be at R.B. Hudson. And we're going to spend the entire year and a half before the 2019 school year opens researching and developing a STEAM academy at R.B. Hudson. All right, and STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. We're going to research best practices, research programs that are doing well, and make it innovative, cutting edge with all of the resources and professional development that our students and teachers need, so that people are visiting Selma because they want to see this STEAM Academy at R.B. Hudson. And so in the year 2019, we'll have a grand opening of R.B. Hudson where we are completely rebranding the school. And with the new programming of STEAM, with a facelift as far as the interior and exterior, and with the right resources and training for our teachers to give our students the best shot at being successful in whatever they want to do within the STEAM realm or otherwise. And then with Cedar Park, the Cedar Park students will be zoned for Edgewood Elementary School. And within the recommendation, I've recommended that we provide transportation from Cedar Park to Edgewood. And I've worked with our transportation director, and we have the capacity to be able to do that. So those are the 2 recommendations that I made to the school board as a first read before the Thanksgiving holiday, and then we will discuss it in more detail at the work session next Tuesday, and then the final read for them to vote on it will be the following Tuesday, which is December 12th. Yes, ma'am.
Are all of the 5th grade schools capable of doing a 6th grade window?
Yes, ma'am. So her question is, are we able to have the 6th graders stay in elementary? From a capacity standpoint, yes. And then that just goes to the point I made earlier about operating so many buildings that are filled under capacity. Now, it will mean some shifting of staff in terms of having teachers to teach them, but that will be part of the process that we'll work through to ensure that we've got a teacher in every classroom. But yes, ma'am, from a facility standpoint, we are able to absorb the 6th grade students in our elementary schools. Yes, ma'am.
In the closing of school, would there be any layoff, any teachers or any new hires?
Yes, that's a great question. She wants to know we'll have, if there'll be layoffs or rehires and that type of thing. This is not a reduction in force. So this is not about cutting staff. And so no, this is not going to be so that we lay off people or people are losing their jobs. Now people's positions will obviously need to shift based on where the students are, but the staffing and the resources will follow the students. So that we, again, have a teacher in every classroom, and the other staff, such as media specialists, cafeteria staff, and so forth, will follow the students. Yes, sir.
I'm changing the subject. Zoning.
Zoning.
Okay, with Kingston and Clark, that's a zoning problem. When Kingston was moved off the plan, up on Selma, they moved in Clark zoning. So therefore, we got 2 schools in the same zone.
Right.
Clark with 400 plus students, Kingston with 100 plus students.
Right.
Or we're gonna rezone and shift some of Clark students back to Kingston.
That's a great question. He's asking about rezoning, and that's one of the future considerations that I've presented to the board, with the idea of looking at that between now and the year 2019, and with the decision being made at or before the 2019 school year. Because the example that you gave is a very good reason why we need to do that. But right-sizing our schools will go a long way to getting our student populations leveled off in all of our schools. So absolutely, that's one of our future considerations. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. We have considered that, and what will happen is the teachers will follow the students, so they will have the SOD teachers, and we may have to add some depending on how the numbers look at each individual school, and they will still get the 6th grade experience in terms of having more than one teacher and being able to switch classes and so forth. So they will still get a 6th grade experience. And this was the part that was really hard, because when we initially started looking at this, what we wanted to do was keep 6th and 7th grade at SOD for the reasons that you're mentioning. And we tried really hard to figure out how we could make that work. But SOD is in very bad shape physically, and it was just not possible for all of the students to fit there. Because that was really what we wanted, for them to not only get the experience, but get the full experience by being in that building, because I do know that's a valued experience. But we weren't able to do that. And in order for us to do what needs to be done at RB Hudson, we can't do it with a building full of students. And so that was the reason for the 7th grade staying at SOD for another year. And it also gives our teachers, or our students rather, at SOD another year of some of the experiences that they have there. So it's one of those situations where it's probably not going to be a happy moment for every student, because I know how much they look forward to moving on. I get that, I really do. When I was a classroom teacher, I taught at a school in Madison, When I got there, it was grades 7 through 9, but they had changed configurations several times, and my ninth graders that I taught had been in that same building since 5th grade. They weren't happy. So I get it, I really do. And in a perfect world, we'd be able to move them to the SOD building and keep the 7th grade there, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure they still get a quality 6th grade experience. Yes, sir. That's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for that right now. I've had several people ask that. You know, I know a resource center. I've had some suggestions, but the thing about it for the school district, one of the reasons for closing it is for cost savings, because we can't afford to operate the building. So it's not something that we're looking at repurposing for the school district. So that will certainly be part of the planning process to determine what are some possibilities for Cedar Park. Yes, ma'am.
What will become of the questions you have asked the executive already with the change?
And that will be a decision that we'll work with HR and make decisions on where they will be placed. And it's too early right now to say to either the principals or to the staff that this is our definite plan. But we've got teams working on various aspects of it, and so we've got our HR team that will be working on the staffing, which includes all of the teachers, but also the administrators, media specialists, and so forth. What we don't want is for there to be surprises or gotchas, because it's not a gotcha and it's not intended to be a shocker or a surprise, and it's definitely not a reduction in force. So we will make sure that the people affected do have that information in a timely manner.
The next question is, how will us as parents participate, or how will we have to work things out?
That's a great question. So we're going to have the work session on the 5th, and then we're also scheduling 4 community meetings between December and the end of January. And I will put that information out on the website later this week with all of the dates and locations for those meetings. But those 4 community meetings will be to discuss the entire transition plan, but with emphasis on the facilities piece, because I know that's where there are a lot of questions. And it'll give people an opportunity to give their comments. We are also developing a frequently asked questions document that will include the questions that you're asking today and any other questions that we get, so that we can have a resource for parents and community members to go back to in the event that they can't attend the meetings. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, parents are always welcome to do that. Absolutely. Just contact the school, and you are absolutely welcome to go visit any of our schools and to get a tour or to ask questions or whatever it is that you need that would help support your decision. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So it's Cedar Park and SOD. School of Discovery, because we are going to ultimately have a comprehensive middle school grades 6 through 8, which will be a STEAM Academy at R.B. Hudson. And again, this is the recommendation if approved.
Will they still be in uniform, with different colors for SOD? I know they're green. And R.B. Hudson right now, they are black. When they get over there, will they still have the same color with R.B. Hudson for 7th graders?
You know what? That's a great question to ask the students. Seriously, because we do want them to have some say in decisions. So those types of decisions will be made along the way. We'll have teams, which will include students, that will inform a lot of our decisions. But that's a great question, because you start thinking about ownership and so forth in terms of how students feel. This is a brand new school at this point, and so it might not be green or black. I don't know. But it will be up to the students and the faculty and the community to weigh in on those types of decisions. But I appreciate you bringing that up because, when you're talking about rebranding a school, it's a great opportunity to start fresh. That's what we absolutely want the STEAM Academy at R.B. Hudson to be, a fresh start for our middle school and a fresh start for what middle school education looks like in Selma City Schools. To include the STEAM Academy, which is going to, put them at a level to where, again, they're competitive against students nationally and beyond. And they absolutely need to have some say in their mascots and colors and all of that if they wanted to change it. Absolutely. I appreciate you all. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for the support that you provide to our teachers, our students, and all of our schools. And if at any point you have any additional questions for me, by all means, please reach out. I strongly encourage you to come out to board meetings, work sessions, and of course those community meetings once they're scheduled and put out, because we absolutely would love to hear from you. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and I look forward to getting to know you all and working with you.